All right.
Oh, wow. We're live already. Okay.
Yes, we are live, and we are going with What Does Victor Think About Politics and Social Justice for today, 2016, January 3rd.
Okay. My opinion is fuck everything.
All right, to be a little more specific, let's start off with the Canadian Liberal Party. And they've been in power for 100 days?
You know, once I start talking about the Liberal Party, I'm not going to be able to stop. So let's start with the Iowa caucus.
All right, okay. We will start with Iowa and the upcoming New Hampshire primaries.
All right.
So, Donald Trump got stumped.
In a way he did, in a way he didn't. Like, to be fair to Donald Trump, and I'm going to be fair because I'm going to be bashing him a little bit in the next little bit. He came only not like 1% behind Cruz and came out with one less delegate than Cruz. It by no means would be the death knell of a normal campaign.
True, but this is not a normal campaign.
No, it's not. And really, I think actually he was handling things really well when he gave that concession speech in Iowa, and suddenly people then thought, wow, that was really nice of him. Maybe he actually is taking this more seriously. And from there, you could still see him going on to win the primaries and become president.
Well, it's still certainly a possibility.
However, then came his going off on Cruz for the alleged cheating.
Oh dear.
Now, again, to be fair to Trump, Cruz did do something pretty scummy. His campaign actually did send out emails out and told the press that Ben Carson was dropping out of the race before Iowa was counted. And that is where Cruz got the remaining few percentage points, as those evangelical voters decided to vote for him instead because, of course, Ben Carson was dropping out.
Which turned out to be basically true.
Ben Carson hasn't dropped out.
Oh?
He's still sticking in it. The only person that's dropped out is Mike Huckabee and Rand Paul.
Okay, Ben Carson has decided to take a vacation of unknown duration down to Florida to visit relatives while not going to any campaign stops.
Yes. Look, in a way, Ben Carson has dropped out of the race. He just didn't want to say he was dropping out of the race.
But Cruz really, really did.
And Cruz decided to say it for him. And now Trump is trying to claim that means Cruz is cheating, even though, well, what Cruz did was pretty freaking scummy. It's not that scummy in the context of American politics and the stuff that is pulled like this all the time.
Well, technically, Cruz's representatives were going to need to argue that effectively Carson is out of the race at this point. So you need to vote for Cruz because that's how caucuses work.
Yes.
Now, if he actually sent a personal email out saying that Carson was actually out of the race.
Actually, it appears he has.
All right, yes, that is very low.
And also Cruz did a bunch of low things in the lead up to this, in the last few days to this race too. In fact, low things that, as they are publicized, will probably ruin his chances of winning the primaries.
Well, there's a reason why nobody in Congress actually likes Cruz. Or, well, I shouldn't say nobody. There actually are a couple people who will actually support him in his efforts. But almost nobody, even out of the other conservative Republicans, actually will back him up.
Well, yes. Well, this is the thing. Cruz's path to victory was basically having Trump collapse and him getting Donald Trump support. Pulling all of the scummy shit he did in the last few days leading up to Iowa, from the things basically looking like they were coming from the voter registry, explaining why he was the best choice, to this, to a couple of other things, will not mean none of the Donald Trump supporters will vote for him ever.
Yeah, but if that's all the case, then Donald Trump is right to call him out. He's called people out on far less information or anything than this before. And people love it when Donald Trump calls people out.
In a way, he is right, but the thing is, it's setting the wrong tone. I mean, had he actually stuck it in that terrible debate last week with Fox News, right? Calling him out would have been fine. But now, after he ditched that debate and already basically congratulated Ted Cruz and gave his nice speech, now he looks like a bit of a whiner. And in a way, Trump is right, but he's going a little bit too far again. And now he's getting that reputation of being a whiner, which people don't like.
Well, no, he can't look like a loser or like he's apologizing or actually cares what other people think or do. But shall see. I mean, New Hampshire is not a caucus.
No, he's going to win New Hampshire.
Yes, he's still leading there, but mind you, the inevitability of Trump's overthrowing the Republican establishment has taken a serious hit.
Yeah, no.
And Rubio, as the consensus mainstream candidate, has consolidated a lot of power behind him now, as it looks pretty much like one way or the other, if Bush doesn't get something done very, very soon, he's going to be out.
Yeah, Bush is going to be out. A few of the others are going to be. Rubio is going to be the establishment candidate. And I think he's the odds-on favorite at this point for winning the primaries. However, Cruz has made a mistake. Right now, if Donald Trump drops out, Cruz is not getting that support. They're not going to back him now.
If it can actually be backed up, even if Donald Trump does sound like a bit of a whiner, if he can actually back up and these claims can be backed up, that effectively Cruz was being a gigantic ass, then yeah. But then again, the fact is, once Donald Trump bailed out, most of the Trump supporters are just not going to vote in the following Republican primaries at all.
Yes, but that doesn't actually help Cruz. However, if Cruz actually drops out, that support will go to Donald Trump.
Some of it will.
Some of it will, but enough
will.
The
hard kill are evangelicals, although some of them might hold their nose and vote for Trump. There's a fair number of them who won't.
There's a fair number of them that won't, but enough of them will that Trump will be able to get forward.
Actually, ironically enough, I think the guy who probably benefit the most from Trump bailing out, since there's a whole bunch of politically activated people, young people online, is actually probably whoever is the Libertarian Party candidate. They might actually get a couple percent.
But Rand Paul is that candidate, and he's dropped out.
No, I'm talking about the actual Libertarian Party.
Oh, yeah, the Libertarian Party might get a little bit of support.
Oh, yeah. Yes, your camera faded out there for a moment.
Oh, okay. Still seeing my anime character, right?
Not yes, we are now.
Okay, good.
Well, no, I don't think that program will let us see your awful, awful face.
Excellent.
All right. So, well, that's Iowa and New Hampshire.
Yeah. As for the Democrats, Bernie Sanders is still going to lose. but Hillary Clinton has really shown why she shouldn't be president.
Oh, what has she done particularly awful now?
She hasn't done anything awful. The problem is everything leading up to Iowa, right? Like,
well, there was one thing she sort of did a little off, and that is she announced her victory well before it was really sure that she was actually going to win.
well, yes.
I mean, unless she had some serious inside information, that was really premature.
Premature and kind of a dick move.
Yeah, kind of.
But that's the thing.
And she's going to lose New Hampshire.
Yes, she is. But overall, this is still hers to lose. Just, she has to be one of the least likable people in American politics. Like, it's like she learned nothing from the campaign 8 years ago when she was up against Obama, and has managed to come back as an even less sincere version of herself that seems to have a slow-burning hate for humanity.
Well, she is being backed by the big banks who basically make their money by complete and total cynical manipulation of their own clients.
Yeah. She's being backed by the big banks. She's currently scandal-ridden. And
actually, you hear very little of that in the news, though. I mean, there's occasionally it comes up because it's actually gotten to the point where the FBI theoretically could charge her with something, but almost certainly won't. But it's not a big thing in the political news.
yeah, it's not a big thing in the political news, or at least the mainstream political news, but it's still a freaking big deal. Like, I'm sorry, having her lifelong assistant, Adeline, work multiple jobs at the State Department and collect multiple checks is pretty fucking bad.
Well, it's more bad that she was connecting multiple checks from the government while she was also collecting a check from the Clinton Foundation. So effectively working for a non-government. Oh, that's no proof there?
It's apparently a bunch of complicated bullshit. But essentially,
well, if they can prove that she was actually getting money from a non-government agency at the same time as collecting money from a government job, if they can prove that, that would be somewhat serious.
Well, she was, but she wasn't. She didn't hide it, and technically it's up to the State Department to charge her. But still, there's that. There's the whole bullshit fucking email servers.
Well, yes, there's definitely that. But once again, it's a matter of collecting the evidence. I mean, if anybody can actually come up with evidence showing that her servers were actually compromised by a foreign government, but it's not like a foreign government is going to come up and volunteer that information.
Even then, it's the entire point of why would you have your own private special email server?
Well, so nobody else can read it in the government.
Yeah, you know, that's kind of a problem now, isn't it?
Yes, it is a problem, but apparently it wasn't one they had actually made a rule against. At least not at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, the bigger problem is that if she actually took classified information onto her private server, no matter how much she is allowed to have a private server, she's still not allowed to take classified information home with her.
No, she is not.
And that is an actual violation, which she can be prosecuted for. I mean, technically, the penalty for that is, well, unless it was done maliciously, you almost never get jail time. You just get fired.
Yeah, even then, her entire attitude has been proven to be shit, and she's not exactly running on any groundbreaking or wonderful ideas in this campaign. she's taken basically, well, for the most part, she's taken no position except on things, and on things she's taken positions on, she's taken the most flowery, wonderful position she could possibly think of.
Yeah, but that's sort of called being a politician.
That is being called a politician, but it's not being called a leader.
Yeah, but politics isn't necessarily the most effective way of getting yourself a leader, especially if the people don't really want one.
That's true. But still, this has been one of the least inspiring campaigns. And also, just even the way the debates have been going, especially for the Democrats, or the lack of a debate.
Well, I found it more irritating that how they don't ask the same question to all the candidates or let all the candidates follow up on the same question, even though there's only 3 of them and now only 2 of them. And also, they take certain questions, direct them at one person, they have to answer it, and then everybody else is left is basically free to go about it. And this has happened to O'Malley and Sanders several times, where effectively, in O'Malley's case, he barely gets any questions, and then he gets a really hard question, which they don't ask the other candidates.
Pretty much.
Or they ask something to Bernie Sanders, which is potentially a very difficult question, and sometimes he does rather good at answering them. Yeah. And then there's no real follow-up to hit the other candidates.
Well, Hillary Clinton has been getting in those debates a pretty easy and consistent ride. Aside from one question from YouTube a few debates back where she was asked about her relationship with the banks. And then she tried to say, well, Wall Street, how can you criticize me for taking money from Wall Street? 9/11 happened and Wall Street is in New York. That was pretty much the only hard question she got. And even that question wasn't that hard. She just gave a really shitty answer.
Mm-mm.
No, they've been giving her a really easy ride. And they basically destroyed O'Malley's campaign by not asking him anything or just asking him one really hard question every once in a while. And he never was able to make a breakout, even though he's really qualified for the job of president.
I wouldn't know. He's never really got to say his qualifications.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and well, in some ways, also the Republican debates have gone on in a somewhat different direction. I mean, in some ways, they're completely unmanageable because, you have almost a dozen candidates up there. You can't really cover any of them in any detail. And then they just randomly bounce between them based on who's yelling at who.
Yeah.
Or come up with random videotaped hit pieces that they play anyway, even though they no longer have their hit piece of Donald Trump, and they only have a hit piece for 2 candidates as opposed to all of them.
Pretty much, yeah. Which have been pretty freaking terrible.
And also doesn't seem to have much effect at all. But, I mean, largely the debates seem to be, can you react fast and quickly on your feet to us throwing a question at you which you don't really want to answer? And can you come up with the best non-answer as fast as possible, then redirect it to whoever you want to be talking about you next?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because hopefully they'll return the favor and yell at you so you can yell back at them and keep the focus on the 2 of you so nobody else gets any time.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'd say Kasich has been completely screwed over by this whole thing, but the fact is Kasich, while possibly being one of the most qualified men to be president who's ever run for the job in the past few decades, is also one of the least charismatic men I've seen trying to run for the presidency.
Even then, the fact is Kasich has gotten a pretty raw deal. He deserves a lot better. Hell, Lindsey Graham also deserved a lot better.
Lindsey Graham's campaign sort of descended into farce about halfway through.
Yes, it did. It still deserved a lot better than what it got.
Well, that's true. I mean, despite how he may sound and how he's played on various comedy shows, he's not a stupid man. He has been a rather effective leader in Congress.
Mm-hmm. And instead, he was basically shunted to the very, very bottom.
Yes, along with all the we've just come back from all our losing campaigns to run one more time class.
Yeah. Pretty much.
But apparently Kasich has an actual shot at doing at least getting up in the percentage points in New Hampshire. Because even if he has no chance of becoming president, he brings up good issues, which they actually should be talking about in the debates.
Kasich has a theoretical path to victory, but that path basically relies on the Republican field winnowing a lot more and him getting able to actually say things.
Well, it also involved Rubio self-destructing. And the fact is, right now, the runner-up actually for the mainstream Republican vote after Rubio looks to be Christie.
That's true, but well, that's the thing. A lot of the Republican campaign depends on who's going to drop out. Kasich probably has the best chance, and I mean that in the sense that he has a 5% chance, but still, he has a chance of actually making a breakout if he can actually, if the debate field winnows out and he actually gets to some actual speaking time. However, the others really don't. Christie has a bit of a chance, but his time is already kind of gone, and he doesn't really have an issue to stand on. And Bush is pathetic. If Bush and Christie, he is. His whole campaign has been pathetic. Look, you even said it to me once before, and I agree with it. Trump is totally right. He's low energy.
Well, he's not a good public speaker. He tends to hesitate and stall while he's speaking, and even has this sort of misspeak tendency. I mean, not quite as much as his brother does, although his brother in some ways is actually a better public speaker. But he just stumbles over his words.
It's even more than that, right? Because that alone wouldn't put him in such a terrible spot. I mean, it's more of that he just doesn't get in there, right? He isn't adapt fast enough. Like, look.
Yeah, he hits his talking points. And the fact is, even when he did start getting aggressive against Trump, it looked like he was effectively going through the debate points he'd been drilled on.
Yes, he just goes through the debate points. Even outside of debates, his campaign has not tried to really adapt to what's going on. He's pretty much tried to run the same thing throughout and then complain about being unlucky, even though he's doing nothing to make his own luck. Like, I believe it was either Iowa or New Hampshire. I'm not sure. I just think it was Iowa. They estimated he spent $1,000 per vote and ended up getting something like 2%. Like, when you have that kind of money backing you, it's more than that you're having trouble speaking. It's you're just not wanting to accept reality and just change gears and do something else. He basically owned the Iowa airwaves for a few weeks, and he couldn't make a dent.
Yeah, well, hopefully if he hasn't come up with something by the time he loses New Hampshire, he'll just bail out and endorse probably Rubio.
That or stay in out of pure spite.
I said hopefully. I didn't say what he would do.
Well, yes. But yes, hopefully he'll drop out. I'm not sure why he's sticking it out even to New Hampshire, but yeah, he should do himself some dignity and drop out.
Well, Iowa is always an oddball. It's not really like all the other primaries with its caucus system. So really, everybody's going to stick it to New Hampshire. He can put in his money in New Hampshire. It's a more conventional game there, and he may have more effect.
Yes.
So he has to stick it out and see how well he does in New Hampshire. Because right now, although the polls are usually pretty accurate, they've been fluctuating a lot lately, and sometimes they just get it wrong.
That's true, but they haven't been wrong for him so far. And all the late night comedians.
Nothing has happened so far. They can't be right or wrong for him so far because there haven't actually been any results.
All right, well, we'll see what New Hampshire is going to be like. But his campaign's dead, in my opinion. It's been dead ever since he decided to go by Jeb !
Eh.
All right, well, we've beaten the Iowa caucus to death. What's next?
Well, it's back to the Liberal Party.
Ah, yes, it's been more or less 100 days.
Jump into social shenanigans.
No, Liberal Party. It's been more or less 100 days since Justin Trudeau has assumed power.
Mm-hmm.
I give this government a grade of F.
All right, you're now going to need to justify that F.
All right. Well, I'll first start out with what I like that Justin Trudeau has done. It's a very short list. First of all, I like that his government actually has, well, I like that Justin Trudeau has actually gone on a bit of a PR campaign. He shouldn't have went this hard into the PR campaign, but one of the first things he really needed to do was try and assure the public over the economic problems, and he's actually done a reasonable job of that. He's visiting Alberta. He's done a few speeches. He's also done some things with the CBC, like take 10 questions from Canadians, and he's actually done a reasonable, good job at answering them. And in that sense, he's done a fairly good job.
All right.
Also, I'll give him his government some props in that some of their cabinet appointments were actually quite appropriate. I think he chose a very good person for the Minister of Defense, and some of the other ministers are pretty good choices. I will also give him one final props in just listening to him. He does seem to have a decent handle with how the country runs and has been willing to be honest about it now. Like, he was willing to be honest about that in order to have a national daycare program in Canada, by the way Canada is designed, you pretty much have to have 10 separate agreements made with each province. You have to negotiate with each province individually, which is why having a national daycare system has been so freaking problematic.
All right.
He's changing voting system. Change governing system.
Now let's go into the bad parts. Where to begin?
Hopefully quickly.
Oh, this isn't going to be quick. There's a lot of shit to cover.
Well, let's get to it.
If you want the bullet points, let's see. Well, some of his ministers are good. A bunch of other ones are flat out freaking terrible. One of his ministers, which is the Minister of Science, which, if you know how the scientific academia works, shouldn't even exist, happens to also believe in magic.
You believe in magic.
Yeah, you know, scientists are not supposed to believe in magic.
Scientists believe in all kinds of things.
The other projects they have basically done, like half of his PR campaign is justifiable. Other things like appearing on the cover of Vogue magazine and his immediate trip around the world, including promising $5 billion in aid, is insane.
Well, sort of when you travel around the world, you do sort of have to promise aid. That's sort of one of the things you do. And the cover of Vogue, well, that's just good publicity.
No, you don't have to promise $5 billion worth of aid. Fine. If you have to promise some aid, sure. Not $5 billion. And, okay, I'm sorry. You don't have to promise $5 billion, especially in a time of economic crisis. And while Vogue is a nice fashion magazine, they're not exactly a political publication.
So what? Lots of people read Vogue. Politicians go on late night talk shows. That's not exactly a political show. And usually their jokes are handed to them behind the scenes to make them look good when they go on them.
Okay, fine. I don't think doing that at Vogue was such a great thing. But fine. Appeared on Vogue, promised $5 billion. Let's go on. Then there was the whole debacle of Canada's legion of people they had appear at the Paris Climate Conference, where they basically had almost 300 people show up to that thing.
Well, they have a lot of ministers.
They do not have 300 ministers.
And their aides.
That does not... They had the ministers, the aides, mayors show up, and their staff. They had all of those people show up, and the cost for this thing was insane. The numbers aren't still in, but for 13 people in the Foreign Affairs Department, by documents procured by Rebel Media, it costed over $250,000.
Well, hopefully they got a lot of important things sorted out at this conference.
The vast majority of these people did not need to be there. The only people that needed to appear at this conference was maybe the Prime Minister and the Foreign Service and the Environmental Minister. That's it. We didn't need to pay for hundreds of other people to show up.
Well, they got a nice government-paid short vacation with conference talks that they had to attend.
Yes, they got a nice paid vacation at a time of crisis to Paris, which is not good.
It's good if you get to go.
Yeah, it's good if you get to go. Let's see. We have decided to pull out. Well, we haven't technically pulled out, but we've decided to stop sharing intelligence information with our allies because of some incident. We don't even know what it is, but the defense minister has basically said we're no longer going to share intelligence information we've gathered until the information of Canadians is protected.
Protected how?
He didn't say.
So they've gotten some sort of intelligence fight with the Americans, the British, and the Australians.
And New Zealand, yes. But we don't know what the tiff is about. really. We just know that it's happened. And
It's happened, and they're announcing it publicly.
they're announcing it publicly, but they're not saying exactly what has happened. It's a case of either too much information or not enough. Because for a tiff like this, if it's something small, you never reveal it in public. And if it's big enough, then you kind of have to go public about it. And by big, I mean like it has to be really big. This is the shadowy world of intelligence. Unless multiple Canadian citizens have been wrongfully imprisoned, you don't go public with it.
A secret jail deep in the Australian desert, where Canadians are imprisoned and tortured.
That, or I don't know, used by some kind of illicit drug smuggling ring. It has to be something really, really bad.
Well, did they specifically state who they're not sharing intelligence with anymore?
Basically, the people in the Quadruple Intelligence Alliance, as the nations you said, Britain, the United States, New Zealand, and Australia.
That's 5, but okay.
Sorry, 5.
All right, well, the problem there is that is Canada's intelligence alliance. Without
Yes,
that, effectively, internationally, it's blind.
Yes, it is.
I mean, no intelligence from the Australians, the Brits, and the Americans means that Canada is completely reliant on its own CSIS agents
And
by
the
themselves.
by themselves, they're supposed to work in conjunction with other agencies. No, Canada pretty much at this point does not have a functional intelligence agency. It will even have trouble, I imagine, in being able to deal with internal security now.
No, yeah, I mean, part of the agreement between Canada and the US was Canada keeps a bit of an eye on the Americans, and the Americans keep a bit of an eye on Canadians. They don't actually do anything, but if they see anything dangerous, they send the information on. Because it's somewhat illegal for them to monitor their own citizens.
Yes. And then just continuing down this horrible list. Like, the entire refugee crisis has been horribly mismanaged.
Yeah.
Everything about it was horribly mismanaged. A lot of mixed signals are being sent out of the government that should not be mixed signals. Like, for example, marijuana. On the one hand, the Liberal Party said to get elected that it would legalize marijuana.
Yep.
Then ministers start speculating that, it's a lot harder than we thought, and we have all of these international treaties we'd have to exit or renegotiate before we can legalize marijuana. So we're probably not going to legalize it.
Mm-hmm.
But then they sort of try to keep in the ballpark. They totally are going to legalize marijuana some point, maybe, possibly. They just have all of this treaty stuff to go get through, which you really shouldn't do. Like, there's a part of it where, yeah, it's politics, but in the business world, you have to be clear about, are you going to legalize it or not? This is people's money that have been invested on the promise that the Liberals are going to legalize marijuana. This is in some way people's lives is being affected. And also, this is just even a point of, now we're in this situation where the RCMP, does it prosecute people for something that is supposed to become legal? Or doesn't it?
Well, if they're going to live by all their treaty obligations, the obligations which the other parties of the treaty do not live by, then yes, they do have to prosecute them.
Yeah, and that in itself is pretty freaking stupid after an election like this. It should be legalized. Canadians have effectively voted for it. And now it's in this gray area of it's totally going to become legal, but we don't know when it's going to be legal. So in the meantime, it's kind of illegal. So if you're prosecuted for it, the officer doing it is kind of a douchebag, but we're not going to do anything about it. Maybe. I believe that would be the quick notes about why I'm giving the Justin Trudeau government an F.
So he's too pretty. He goes back on his campaign promises for quasi-bullshit reasons.
No, it's not necessarily that. Look, the country is in an actual economic crisis right now. It's very nice that he is pretty and it can appear on the cover of Vogue magazine, but when your country is in an economic crisis, you at least have to appear that you're doing something to resolve the crisis. And you have to also give your government the tools to actually be able to do it, like have a deputy prime minister, something he has not done.
No, they still haven't appointed a deputy?
They're not going to, apparently. I should have mentioned it before, but yeah. No, while he's been wandering around the country and everywhere else, he has not had an actual deputy prime minister. They've ended up doing, as I understand it, I haven't paid full attention to it, but they've kind of rotated who's going to be the prime minister, well, the deputy prime minister based on who's the most senior person currently in the legislature.
Okay, are they allowed to do that legally and pass legislation?
Now that things have been dealt with in the Senate, yeah, kind of.
All right, well.
I mean, but that's kind of the problem. You effectively have multiple people running the parliament at the moment, and Justin Trudeau is dealing with the PMO office largely through telephone or they're following in his entourage as he keeps traveling around. Like, in a way, this would be fine if he was the United States president, because in some ways, that is more of the job of the president of the United States. But that's because Congress and the Senate largely acts independently of the president.
Well, we have that. It's called the Queen or the Governor General.
They have no authority to do anything, nor should they be given any. And that's the other thing. A lot of things that he's been doing are just freaking quasi-legal. Like his government's push to rewrite the election laws to have a ranked ballot system, which is not what he ran his election campaign on, and he wants to do it through a vote through parliament rather than a referendum.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to stand up in court.
You don't think, but, and it shouldn't, but there's no constitution or specific law that says they can't. It's just part of the parliamentary traditions that they shouldn't.
Well, yes, but the problem there is Canada has no strict constitution, and technically there's nothing stopping the Prime Minister of Canada from doing anything.
Yes. It's just, that's the thing. He's doing a bunch of things that haven't been done before and are arguably very bad. Like getting rid of the Defense Committee. Or actually, I shouldn't say that. It's now been revealed that the Defense Committee has now been rolled into the Foreign Affairs Committee.
No, I'm sort of looking forward to his first meeting with President Obama, which he's been hyping up quite a bit, where effectively he's currently in an intelligence slap fight with them and has pulled out all his forces from supporting the Americans in fighting Islamic terrorism.
Yes. That's going to go so well.
Yes, I think he's a little too reliant on liberal solidarity with Obama on that one.
Yeah. Look, like, no, he's done a pretty shitty job. In some ways, even shittier than I thought he was going to do.
Look, I can't say it's a good job because he hasn't really done anything, but that's the thing. He hasn't really done anything.
He's done quite a bit now. Like, granted, he hasn't given his budget yet, and the budget is probably going to be the real test. But
yeah,
right now, he's essentially committed to running a government very wishy-washy on the rules.
Look, so far it's all been politics. Until they come down to actual legislation and actual budget, they haven't really done anything. They just sort of hinted around doing things. The only thing they've done and sort of screwed up was the refugee thing, where they brought in a bunch of refugees. Then, unfortunately for the refugees, they then stuck them out in the middle of nowhere and sort of abandoned them in Canada in winter.
Yes. But not only that, but no, the trying to change our electoral rules without a referendum is not politics. That is something they've drafted legislation for and are trying to pass.
If they were going to pass it, they would have just passed it.
They haven't been able to pass it because currently the Senate is saying no. Justin Trudeau has to sit his ass in Ottawa for a period of a few weeks or longer to add more senators in.
Okay, that's a little farther than I thought it would have got.
Yeah, no, it's actually gone pretty far. And once it passes, then it's going to come the inevitable court challenge.
Yes, but first he has to effectively sort of break his word and do what he accused the Conservatives of doing, of packing the Senate.
Either he has to pack the Senate, or he has to wait till some of the senators retire and replace them, which will not be that long.
But yes, he'll have to push people into the Senate if he's going to try and pass that for an act of legislation, and then it'll go to a court challenge.
Yes,
where I'm pretty sure he's going to be forced into a referendum. If they couldn't pass Meech Lake without a referendum, I'm pretty sure they can't pass this without a referendum.
I'm not that sure about that. But also, the intelligence thing also is not just politics and putzing around.
No, the problem is we don't know what's behind the scenes on that one. But so far it looks like, well, they don't seem to have handled it well. Because this is presumably, if it's a minor but important issue, he should go and talk to President Obama about it in their grand meeting, not have the defense minister mouth off on it in public without saying what it actually is.
Yeah, no, it's been handled poorly.
Also, saying it like that is just going to antagonize everyone, unless he actually has a problem with all the other members.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to handle that well either, especially since Canada's known as the leakiest member of that particular intelligence group.
Yeah.
And there's been calls in the past, admittedly this was back during the Cold War, to actually exclude Canada from certain more private information, which they didn't want the Soviets to eventually find out.
Yes. And also, there's the point that now running a parliament is an actual job the prime minister has to do. And if not, he has to have a deputy prime minister for it. Legislation is important. You cannot have this system we currently have of who's today's prime minister.
Look, they're a little disorganized.
They're really disorganized.
And they have way too many ministers, and they seem to be spitballing random things around, some of which are a little crazy, but so far they haven't tried to implement any of those ones yet. Well, mind you, if they're really trying to push this ranked ballot. Although, I think there are actually some strengths to the ranked ballot. I just don't think you should try and impose it by an act of parliament.
Well, that's the thing. I too think there's some strengths to the ranked ballot system, but just unilaterally passing it through parliament and effectively pushing it to an actual court challenge is a really shitty thing to go about it.
All right, but anyway, 100 days. I'd say more like a D rather than an F. But the thing is, they haven't done the big things. They haven't actually got the budget done, and that's sort of huge.
That's true. We have to see what the budget actually is going to be.
And frankly, until they actually do a budget, I couldn't really give them a rank above a D because, well, they haven't done their job yet.
Fair enough. But we'll see what the budget actually is going to be like.
All right. So
Okay.
that's the Liberal Party of Canada. Now on to the wonders of social justice in the past few days.
Actually, maybe we'll do that another time. It looks like I have to go.
All right. Well, we sort of did put it in the thing, so let's just do it just a couple minutes and let people know that effectively Richard Dawkins has been no-platformed from a skeptics conference because he tweeted about a parody video.
A very funny parody video.
Yes, well, apparently he didn't even realize that the parody video was about a real people. And apparently he has been told that there was actually real threats going to this real person who's parodied in this. And eventually I believe he did actually delete the tweet, although he then later tweeted that it is perfectly valid to criticize and even make parody of other people's point of views. But however, threats of physical violence were not acceptable. And this got him into a lot of trouble, and he got removed from a skeptics conference.
Which is complete and utter bullshit.
Well, yes, the fact is you have to have open critique of other people and their ideas, even if it does open them up to potentially being threatened on the internet, because pretty much anything on the internet opens you up to being threatened on the internet. Yes.
Anything will open you up to being threatened in the internet, or even real life for that matter. And to be quite frank, like, this has gone to such a freaking extreme to appease a very small minority of people that can't be appeased, apparently.
No, it does not appear that they are interested in actually being appeased. Yeah. They are more interested in the grievance.
Yes, they're interested.
And finding one.
Yeah. Look, we've gotten to the point where even a joke cartoon song cannot be shared without them trying to destroy your career.
Well, it's not really destroying his career. He's already got that. But yes, they're effectively trying to eliminate his ability to speak.
Yes.
At least in public.
No, I mean, they're going to accept at this point. There's really no point in trying to appease these people. People should just try and be rational. And just because you do not agree with, say, feminism 100%, or at this point, certain brands of feminism, because I agree that all women should be equal. I completely 100% agree with that.
That all women should be equal?
Sorry. Well,
I think they're trying to get, all people, as in men and women, to be...
Sorry, I missed that. Fine. Men and women should be fucking equal. That's what I meant. But anyways, however, that does not mean we're going to throw in a whole bunch of different things in there, including thought control. Censoring
Well,
anything that might be against or can be construed as being against women somehow. And just basically going to this puritanical, fundamentalist, almost religious view of things.
I believe that's what the cartoon was parodying.
Yes, it really was.
However, in good news, on, I believe, the Big Think site, John Cleese has come out against censorship of comedy and the whole political correctness on campus situation, which is stopping him, amongst other comedians, from announcing any college campus dates.
Oh, no. I mean, it's gone into a massive point of stupidity, and part of the reason this has gotten as bad as it has gotten is partly because our leaders, and especially the media and the left, have been unwilling to call these people on it. In fact, they've been outright covering for them.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's been a complete convenient media narrative, and definitely a clickbait topic, to effectively come up with the latest outrage somebody who it is safe to poke fun at has done. And generally, the safest thing from a political correctness point of view is to find somebody who has some measure of power and is white and male. And those, you can make as many clickbaity articles as you possibly can without really offending anyone.
Yeah, except it's not right. It's not right, and it's basically ruined a whole bunch of people's lives and brought us to, well, this, where you're going to be no platformed for sharing a joke.
Well, I believe their argument is he's being no platform for supporting harassment. But yes, the fact is, even the things he said in no way supported harassment.
Pretty much.
Unless you count disagreeing with someone as harassment.
Yeah. But anyways, I really gotta go, so I'll talk to you later, and it's been nice.
All right, well, that's it. I will see about actually putting some links down under the video for those videos we talked about, like the cartoon, and talk to everyone next time.
Bye.
Bye.